You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. What's up, everybody? Chris Blair here, and this is another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. And this week we have Jenna LaMaster on the podcast. Jenna is a very talented up-and-coming singer-songwriter based right here in Nashville. And if you haven't heard of her yet, you definitely will soon. She started out in Nashville working 14-hour days at a ranch outside of town just to pay her bills before she signed her publishing deal, which, by the way, she signed in the middle of the pandemic, which is super crazy and a really cool story. She has several cuts with Ashland Craft, including Your Momma Still Does, written with Jonathan Singleton and was released by Ashland back in 2021. And Jenna shares the story behind her own 2023 release, Drunk Thoughts, which was written with Lee Starr and Whitney Duncan. In this episode, we also talk about how it was growing up in a competing rodeo family in Northern California, building her camp here in Music City with other female writers like Lainey and Faren, and learning how to decide which songs to keep for herself and which to offer to other artists. Jenna also plays a verse and chorus of Your Momma Still Does and Drunk Thoughts. Really enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you do too. If you did, please share this with your friends and give us a follow. It's because of you that we get to keep doing this, and it is our passion to share the stories behind the songs with everybody every week. So thank you for doing it. I loved getting to hear a little bit more of Jenna's story, and I can't wait for you all to hear it as well. Let's get to it. Here is Jenna LaMaster. All right, here we are at the listening room in Nashville with Jenna LaMaster. How are you?
I'm so good.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm very excited to be here.
It's you have had such an incredible journey, and I can't wait to dive in on both the writing and what you're doing as an artist.
Yeah.
So yeah, just great stuff to talk about. Like I do on all the episodes. Before we dive into that, let's just start from the beginning.
Yeah.
California. Walk me through how you got into music and just what life was like growing up.
Yeah. So crazy. I grew up in a town called Placerville, California. It's pretty small in Northern California, pretty much right between Tahoe and Sacramento. And I grew up in a big rodeo family. Me and my siblings started competing at a really young age. I have siblings that are triplets, actually, which is so crazy. I'm sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
But they're 2 years older than me. We started competing, and that was a big part of our life. Like, we spent a lot of time on the road rodeoing every weekend. And they would have, I grew up singing in church, but never really thought that would be something that I would pursue, definitely professionally. It's just crazy how, like, in your hometowns, I didn't even know that songwriting was a job, an occupation, you know? And it wasn't until I started diving a little deeper there. Once I'd grown up, I spent most of my youth competing. I competed in junior rodeo, high school rodeo, and then eventually went on the PRCA circuit with my sister and was rodeoing some. And they would have these cowboy church services for the contestants, and they would have somebody there preaching, but a lot of the times they wouldn't have any worship. And I was like, this is silly.
I want to sing.
Yeah, I'll learn to play the guitar.
Yeah.
How hard could it be? Like, I have my grandpa's guitar in the horse trailer anyway. I'll learn to play it. We can lead worship beforehand. It'll be awesome. And so that's really where my journey kind of started with music.
Yeah. What were you doing in the rodeo?
So when I was real young, I was doing barrel racing, pole bending, goat tying, and I had just started doing a little bit of breakaway roping. But
that's awesome. I love it.
Then on the professional level, the only event offered for women is barrel racing. So that's what I stuck with.
Yeah. I love it. I never did rodeo, but I grew up on farms and used to break quarter horses, and just, I love that life.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That life, I am so grateful, like, to be raised in that environment. When I moved to town, there was a lot of people that were like, I've been, making music since I could talk. I was writing songs, and that wasn't my story. So I felt somewhat, of an outsider in that sense, or maybe like, oh no, I'm a small fish in a big pond, which is still true. But what I did which I later learned, I could use to my advantage, is that I came to town with a bunch of stories, because I lived life before I moved here.
Yeah.
And the things that you learn growing up on a farm and ranch at a young age, you learn a lot.
It is a different type of work ethic.
Yeah.
To get up early and go milk the cows or whatever, that's what I was doing. And
that's hard work.
When I remember watching my grandparents, I would drive the tractor before I could even sit I couldn't reach the clutch if I was sitting, so I'd have to stand up and drive the tractor. And my grandma was throwing bales of hay, or my grandpa was throwing bales of hay up to the flatbed, and my grandma would stack them. And I wanted to be my grandpa so bad until that day that I got to be that. Yeah. And I mean, if you grow up baling hay and working like that, I mean, it teaches you so much.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
There was plenty of time. We would get loads of hay in, like 300 bales at a time. And our dad would be like, all right, kids, go stack it.
Yep.
I was like 12, just stacking hay all summer.
That's right. I love it. Okay, so you grew up in California doing all that, working the rodeo circuit. So that's when you really started to pick up the guitar at the cowboy church and do that?
Yes. At that point, I moved to Texas when I was 18.
Okay.
Me and my siblings and a whole family at one point, which I do need to say, I'm so grateful. My parents have always been willing to support and encourage all of us kids to chase our dreams, no matter what that was. And for me, it was two very unstable careers. And they never once, doubted or put any kind of negativity on it. They were always like, if that's what you want to do in life, do it. Find out how to make it work. Chase it. So I was 18 in Texas and then started playing for Cowboy Church. And at that point, it's like once I picked up the guitar, I had to learn every country song I ever knew. Mm-hmm. And the rodeo life and country music kind of go hand in hand together. There's a lot of rodeos that have country concerts at them. And I kind of became the girl with the guitar in the horse trailer. So after the rodeo, there's a campfire and, hey, go grab your guitar and play something. And I was working for a cutting horse trainer in Texas at the time. And he had worked with artists and songwriters before. And he kind of encouraged me and was like, hey, you ought to think about, pursuing that, whatever that looks like. Which now looking back, I think was his very kind way of being like, you're not going to be a professional athlete for forever.
Yeah.
You're not that good. But I have to thank him because that really pushed me to look into, okay, what does that look like? Oh, Nashville. Awesome. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And so I was in Texas for a few years and just started struggling competition wise. And it's a tough blue collar American sport. You pay to play. So when you're not winning, you're not making money. And I just felt my passion for it dying, which was crazy because that was something that I trained for, that I could see the end goal. I was very much like, okay, this is my 5-year plan and my 10-year plan. And I had big dreams of qualifying for the NFR, which is the National Finals Rodeo, and then having a platform, and I could give clinics to kids and maybe create my own tack line and all of that kind of stuff. And when that didn't work out, I was kind of like, oh no. Like I could just feel the passion dying. And me and my sister both eventually moved back home to Northern California. And I had a few songs that I had written on my own. And I was like, hey, Mom, Dad, I wrote some songs while I was living in Texas. And I played them, the few that I'd written. And they were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And they were terrible, I can promise you. But they were like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, let's find somebody who can help us figure out what that means. So somebody that actually went to church with us growing up in Northern California had moved here and worked in the Christian music industry. So I had met with him, which was really funny because I just moved back, and he called and he's like, hey, so I hear you're a country music artist. And I was like, well, I've never actually performed. Like, I haven't played my music for anybody. And he was like, okay, well, like, you've taken guitar lessons and singing lessons and stuff like that. And I was like, well, no, actually, I haven't. And he's like, okay, let me just stop you. Like, it's a big dream. I don't want to just crush it for you, but it's not looking good. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. I feel so stupid. I can't believe, I thought I could do that. And he was like, I have 30 minutes next week on Tuesday or whatever it was, if you want to come by and play me something. And I was kind of like a dog with my tail between my legs, like, okay, well, might as well. What do I have to lose now? I already feel like an idiot. And I showed up and played him something, and he was like, okay, well, I'm not going to crush your dream anymore, but if you want to actually pursue this, this is what it's going to take. It's going to take learning to co-write with other writers. You're going to have to move to Nashville. You're going to have to, play out, meet people, network. That's such a big part of living here.
Yeah.
And, I moved just a few months after that. So crazy.
Yeah. So walk me through what it was like then after you moved here and up to getting your first pub deal.
Yeah. So when I first moved to town, I was like, oh no, what am I going to do for work? And I called the trainer that I told you about in Texas and was like, hey, all right, I'm really doing it. Like, I think I'm going to move to Nashville. Do you know of anywhere I could get a job? Like, what I do. I've worked horses my whole life. Ideally, that would be something to do. And he said, okay, call this lady named Barbara. And so I called Barbara and I was like, hi, my name's Jenna. I'm hoping to move to Nashville. I'm looking for a job working horses. I heard you might have like a farm or a ranch. She was like, yes, we have a cutting horse ranch just outside of Nashville. Why don't you call the head trainer that leases our facility? And so I called him. He was like, hey, thanks for calling. We're not really looking for anybody right now. And at that point, I just kind of felt like, okay, this is all happening very quickly. God, what do you want me to do here? Am I trying to rush this? Is this not what I'm supposed to do? And I was planning on coming out to visit Nashville for the first time with my parents and record my very first demos. And the trainer called me back and was like, hey, so actually, is there any chance you could come interview with us? And I was like, I'll be in Nashville in 2 days. Like, yes, this is amazing. Yeah. So came out, interviewed with him and got the job. And then again, moved very shortly. So I worked on the farm for the first year I was here, which was definitely tough work. I mean, that's like 14-hour days, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So that really took a bunch of my time within the first year of being here. And I had kind of tried to figure out how to, meet people, but I didn't know a soul here. So there was a few nights that I would go out to writers' nights, like places like this, listening room, and it was the late show. And in the summer, we would start at 2 a.m. because it's so hot and the horses and cattle would get sour. And I would go straight from the writer night to work. And it was just, I'm so grateful for that year, but also it definitely pushed me. I had no idea what I was doing. And, there is a guy named Mike Leatherwood, and he is the farm manager there. And he came up to me one afternoon and he was like, hey, so I hear you're wanting to get in the music business. And I said, well, yes, sir. That's what I moved here to do. And he was like, well, I don't know anything about all that, but I know some people that do. And he's like, I've watched your work ethic since you've been here, and you're the first person here and you're the last person to leave. And he was like, I respect that. So I'd love to try to help you if I can, which was such an amazing blessing to me and such a good reminder that it's, you know, who you are when people aren't looking.
Yeah.
They are looking. So like, make sure, you know, you are making the choices that you want to be known by. And that was just such incredible timing. At that point, I actually got bucked off of a horse, which hurt my pride a lot. I can't believe I'm admitting it here. But I got bucked off and stomped on, and I broke my elbow. I got bucked off underneath, and the horse came down on my elbow and broke my elbow, which was really bad timing because the following day was my first full band gig in town. And I was so excited that I was like, you know what? I went to the ER. They put a cast on it. And I was like, I'll hire another guitar player. We're playing the gig.
The show goes on.
The show goes on.
I love it.
I look at the photos now and just look so stupid with my arm like
Hey, but you did it.
I did it. And honestly, at that point, I thought breaking my arm was such terrible timing. But now looking back, I feel like it was kind of God's way of being like, I didn't move you there to do that. Like, if you're not going to leave the job, I'll make you. And so Mike, the farm manager, had connected me with other songwriters that took me under their wing and really, you know, helped me. It's where I learned how to craft a song, you know? So thankful for the Nashville songwriting community taking a chance on me and just helping me grow. And I'm trying to think timing wise, a few years, I guess, maybe a year after I broke my arm is when I signed my publishing deal, which was also crazy. A writer named Shane Miner had brought me, you know, to a few different publishers in town. And at the time, 50 Egg and Sheltered Music, they had both believed in me. And I had started writing with some of their writers. You know, in the beginning, when you're shopping for a publishing deal, a lot of publishers will say, awesome, will you write with some of our writers just to see, you know, if they like it, kind of getting vouched for, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, which, you know, was crazy for everyone on earth, but the music industry kind of paused, and those publishers still decided to take a chance on me. I signed, I believe, in May of 2020.
Yeah, I want to dive into that because I've got a lot of friends who were losing deals.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, it was just really unheard of. Our industry was completely shut down. Like, the whole world was shut down, but especially music and hospitality was just like couldn't exist at that time. And the fact that they still believed in you so much and you got a deal signed. What was that like for you? I mean, it was kind of surreal. I mean, that was my very first deal, my first experience with everything. I thought for sure they were going to back out. Yeah.
But I mean, again, all the credit goes to them because they signed. Anytime people sign a new writer, they're taking a risk or a chance on somebody. So I'm just so grateful that they believed in me and were willing to do that.
Yeah. Well, we are too, because we get some good music out of it, and we always love having you here. So let's dive into that. So you get your pub deal, and then things really start to happen. You've got a couple cuts with Ashland Craft I want to dive into, and then go into some stuff that you're working on yourself. So let's start with Ashland. You've got a good group of writers, a lot of great female writers that you've kind of grown up with. So let's talk about that and how you built your camp after getting signed, and let's dive into a story behind the song.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so grateful for my group of girls that I met. I mean, again, when you get here and you don't know anybody, it takes some time to really find your crew of people that you love working with, that you write with, that you're able to cheer on. That group of people is so important.
Yeah.
And so Ashland's part of the Ashland Craft, Faren Rachel's, Casey Tyndall, Lainey Wilson, Megan Patrick. We just all we found each other at a time when no one had anything going on. And we were just able to walk through all of that together. Hey, I have a meeting with a publisher. Am I going to get a pub deal? And also the days of doubt where, man, this has been so tough. I don't know if this is ever going to work out for me. And so was super thankful for them. Ashland was also at 50 Egg at the time. And we started writing together and just hit it off. But Your Momma Still Does is the first song that I knew she was going to record. That was actually one that I wrote with Jonathan Singleton. That was our first write. And I had gotten a text from my ex's mama. Sorry if you're listening. But she was always very sweet. I still love her dearly. And she had written me a text that just said, "Hey, Jenna, I just want to let you know that I was thinking of you and praying about it. And I feel like yours and my son's story isn't over yet." And it was definitely over. But I just thought it was so funny that I never heard from him one time after we broke up, but I still hear from his mama. So I had brought that idea into Jonathan. We wrote it that day. And he sent it over to Ashland, I think, that day. And she was like, "I love this. I have an ex with a mama, too, like this." And so she just really connected and resonated with the song. And I'm so grateful, especially at a time now where outside cuts are a little bit less common.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times artists do write their own material. Her taking a chance and, giving me that cut. And we wrote another song, me, her, and Faren Rachel's. We were on a writer's retreat, and we wrote a song called "Leaving You Again." Both songs that I love, and I'm just so grateful. Ashland absolutely killed them.
Yeah.
And that was really special to me and probably gave me some, cred and even just confidence in knowing, like, okay, I can do this. Like, somebody else believed in the song. Awesome. So thankful. So, yeah, those will always be special.
So when you took that idea into the room for Your Momma Still Does with Jonathan, was it a quick write?
It actually was. And Jonathan's an incredible writer. Yeah. And so I was just like, okay, I have this idea, gonna put it out there. He was like, "How do you hear this going?" And I was like, "Well, maybe something like this." And then it just kind of was off to the races. I tried to stay out of his way as much as I could and then interject little things. But, he doesn't need any help writing a song. And I just, at least from what I remember, it was a very quick write.
Yeah, I love that. You want to play a little bit of it for us?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Love to hear it, yeah. And we will make sure that we put some links to these songs in the liner notes for everybody out there listening. So go check this out on Ashland's album, anywhere you get music. So
yes. All right. This is Your Momma Still Does. Thought we had a good thing going, kinda had a ring to it. I thought if anybody ever could have made it to forever, me and you could do it. And I ain't the only one holding on, hoping you'll change your mind. But you don't even think about picking up the phone. You don't even think about saying you were wrong. You don't even miss one me and you had. But you don't even think about that. No, you don't even call me saying you're sorry and you messed up. But your mama still does.
Come on. I love it.
Thank you.
It's such a good song.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by All Clear Audio. All Clear Audio is a custom and universal in-ear monitor company based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with a storefront right here in Nashville, Tennessee, where we film the Stories Behind the Songs podcast. All Clear strives to not only be the leading provider of high-quality custom and universal fit in-ear monitors, but also leads the way in customer service and care. With custom starting at dual driver all the way to 13 drivers, there's something for everyone. Head over to allclair.com, that's ALCLAIR.com, and use our code SBTSongs to receive 10% off. Thank you for the sponsorship. We love you guys at All Clear, and we hope that everyone out there listening takes advantage of this and enjoys them as well. All right, let's kind of shift gears because I want to talk about everything that you are doing right now. And I love that even going back to some of the early days when you were writing, there were certain songs that you wrote that you were just like, I have to hold on to this.
Yes. So that's such an interesting thing to think about because when you first moved to town, at least for me, when I first moved to town, every song was so precious.
Yeah.
Like, I just wanted to hang on to everything. Then you end up realizing, wait a minute, I write 5 days a week and that's a lot of songs to hold on to. And you kind of just learn, you have to kind of listen to your gut and really think about which ones do you really want to hold on for yourself. And there was a period of time where I was like, what if the artist career doesn't work out? And then what songs am I willing to, give away? Are all of them songs that I'm willing to give away? And I wrote a song with Whitney, Duncan, and Lee Starr called Drunk Thoughts. And that was actually our first co-write together. And since then, I mean, we write multiple times a month. They've become some of my favorite co-writers.
Yeah.
But we wrote a song called Drunk Thoughts. And that kind of just internally changed the game for me because it was a song that I felt like was so special and that I resonated with, and was a story that I was like, man, that would really kill me to hear another artist sing it, which I don't know if I felt, that feeling so strongly at that point. I was definitely like, whoa, I want to tell this story, which is funny because it's not even necessarily a story I've lived, but it just resonated with me. So, that was definitely one that I held on to. And from then on, just kept a very small list and continued writing as much as I could. And then when I had the opportunity to actually go in and start working on my project, that was up there at the top.
Yeah. Let's dive into Drunk Thoughts a little bit more. I think, there's a lot of people that have reached out through this podcast that are not necessarily songwriters yet, but they're like, hey, I want to do this. I want to move to Nashville. What advice do you have? All that kind of stuff, which I want to pick your brain about in a little bit. But, as a songwriter myself, like it's so good when things that you hear all the time, you're able to take those ideas and jot them down and then turn it into a hook that is something that good. And we've all heard at some point in our lives probably like, oh, what that guy is saying when he's drunk is just making it easier for him to say, like now when he wouldn't say it sober and like all this kind of thing. And you guys took this idea that I think Whitney brought into the room and flipped it into just such a brilliant hook. So take us into the room that day of like what the conversation was like and how that story turned into this amazing song.
It's so crazy. It's so funny. I think, I forget which songwriter it was that I watched an interview on, and they're like, they've had massive success. And, they said, I walk into the room every day thinking like, oh no, am I going to be able to do it today? Like, where does the song come from? And when I first moved to town, I watched that and was like, wait a minute. Like, you're the best there is. What you should know you have to know how to do it by now. And I mean, I'm still grinding and trying to make everything work, but I get that a little bit more. Sometimes you walk into a room and you don't know where the song is going to go or what's going to come from it. I mean, that's what I think keeps it fun and interesting and addicting, because you want to write, the next great song that you can. And Whitney had come into the room that day and she said that her husband was talking over the weekend and he had brought up a drunk man's words or a sober man's thoughts. And she's like, I wonder if we could make a song out of that. And both me and Lee were like, that's awesome. Like, yeah, let's figure out, how to turn that. And I don't remember who said, what about drunk thoughts, sober truth? And we all kind of, it clicked for all of us at the same time. And we looked at each other and we're like, oh, this could be really cool. Like, what if we created the concept, if a drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts, what are the things that even the drunk man wouldn't say when he's drunk? Like, what are the things that are so vulnerable that, you would never utter out loud? And so we just kind of crafted this story around, a character and imagined what that would be. And it took us 2 sessions to finish it. We started it in 1 and got back together to finish it. But I think we all kind of knew it was special and didn't want to mess it up. So we wanted to take our time and just really dig of what would those things be, try to get as honest as we could. And it's been so rewarding to now, after having put the song out, have people reach out and be like, man, that's my story. Like, you guys, I feel like you wrote it from my diary. And that's just the highest compliment that any writer or artist could get, that we created something that other people can put their story into. So grateful.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you took it on and had the legendary Paul Franklin produce it. And
I know.
I mean, what was it like after, you write it and you're like, okay, this one's something special. It's something I need to hold on to. And then you get to work with Paul and you got to put it out towards the end of 2023.
Yeah.
And what was it like during that time and how has it been since?
So crazy. I just still pinch myself that I get to work with those guys. And it came out of really experimenting. Like, I had been in town for a minute before going in to work on my own artistry, had gotten, kind of my footing in songwriting and started learning how that goes, and took my time. I really wanted to make sure that my sound and the songs and everything felt like me 100%. And if there was anything that didn't, I would rather never put out music as an artist and just write songs if I wasn't able to find that, to create that. And so working with Glenn and Paul came out of experimenting. My publisher, Daryl Franklin, was like, hey, why don't you just try going in the studio with these guys and seeing what you come up with? And I mean, honestly, I don't even deserve to be in the same room with those guys. They're iconic in every way. Glenn has co-produced a bunch of stuff with Frank Liddell, from Miranda, Pistol Annie's, Liam Womack, David Nail, and Paul has played on literally all of my favorite records. And so I felt like they got me, and they didn't have to do my project. Who was I? Nobody. And they just took a real chance. And I think we created something special. And for whatever reason, they've been willing to continue working with me, which I'm just grateful for. So
that means you do deserve to be in the room.
I don't know about that. But yeah, it's just magical. So we went in the studio, experimented with a few songs. That one was definitely the one that it just kind of, I felt like was the best one of the group. It just stuck its head out a little farther. And so at that point, I was still like, okay, when is the right time? That's such an interesting thing, especially now in the time of everybody releases a lot of music very frequently. And, just kind of felt like, oh no, what do I, if I don't have something to immediately follow it, is it going to be a waste putting it out there? But I finally just got to the point where it was like, this is where I am now. I want to show people what I do and just, finally put myself out there. I haven't ever. And, that ended up being a really good thing for me. I had put out the song, and a week later, a manager, Marnie McLyman from Maverick, had reached out and was like, hey, what's going on here? Like, how are you doing this? And who are you working with? And who's your team? I was like, I don't have a manager, actually. And so we ended up meeting and just hitting it off. And we joined forces, I guess, at the beginning of this year. And from that point, I mean, again, it feels like a wild ride, and I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for the team. They have all been believers, and I'm now getting ready to go out and open some shows for Ian Munzik on the West Coast, which I'm excited about. And I get to make my Ryman debut, which I'm excited about. I cannot believe that.
With who?
With Terry Clark.
Yeah.
Shout out, Terry. Thank you. Just such a big fan. All the women in the 90s. That's going to be an amazing night. But yeah. And it's so fun because on my first trip to Nashville with my parents, one of the first places that we went to was the Ryman. And I just, you walk in that building and you can feel the magic. Yeah. It's just so special, and the history. And I just remember sitting on the edge of my seat or the edge of my pew and just soaking up every moment. And there's a picture that me and my mom took outside of the Ryman 9 years ago. And then I get to play at the end of August. And I'm like, Mom, we have to recreate this photo because it's so full circle. Yes, that is so cool. So fun. So I'm just thankful. We've been in the studio recording a new project, or the rest of the project, and we're going to start releasing some of that. And I'm so excited. Lots of amazing things going on. I love it. So grateful. Yeah. Well, let's hear a little Drunk Thoughts. Okay. Play a little verse chorus of that. Let's do it. Okay. All right. This is Drunk Thoughts. Probably ought to be settled down by now. I probably should have made it farther than this town. I'm young enough to want to chase something new. I'm old enough to know I'm gonna have to make do. Drunk thoughts, sober truth. I wish I didn't want another cigarette. I wish I would have bought another bottle of red. Yeah, I'm a long, long way from the girl I knew, but at least I don't got a whole lot to lose. Drunk thoughts, sober truth. I'm just drinking 'cause I'm lonely. I'm just lonely 'cause you're gone. You're just gone because I can't keep a good thing around too long. And I'm thinking in the morning that I'll still be missing you. Drunk thoughts, sober truth. So good. Thank you. That's so good. Thank you. And
You have a new single coming out soon too, right? I don't think we know
Yes, I
a
can't
date
share any
yet.
dates
Yes.
But yeah, like I said, we've been in the studio just taking new songs in and seeing which ones are special. And this one came about. I actually wrote it with Lee and Whitney again. I wasn't kidding when I said they're some of my faves. But we just kind of started talking about how crazy the world is.
Yeah.
It's a little wild out there, the wild, wild west. But I think it's probably always been crazy. And we just started talking about that. You know, you can either look at everything through the lens of fear, or you can look at everything through the lens of, you know, peace and resilience and an attitude of never give up. And if you're like us, you still believe that the good guy wins in the end. And so just we wanted to share that message, and this song came out of that, but it's called Truth Is, and it'll be out this fall.
Yay.
Yay.
We'll again put links to everything and get that updated when it comes out, but super excited for that.
Thank you. And thank you, seriously, that this venue, the listening room, what you've created is just so special. Like, it's something that the town doesn't have, which kind of blows my mind. I mean, we have the Bluebird, which is definitely legendary and iconic. The history there is so special. It's also a very small, intimate room, which, you know, it makes it magical. But we don't really have a large space as songwriters to get to play and still keep the intimate setting for a large venue. And so the fact that you did create that, and I mean, this is the best round in Nashville. Anytime I have family or friends visiting, they're like, where do I go? I always say, go to the listening room.
Thank you.
So thank you for allowing me to play here and share my stories here. And it's really awesome.
That means a lot. Appreciate that.
I mean it.
Yeah. It's been so good having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for sharing your story. And
thank you.
I wanna wrap up just a couple questions. You know, it's difficult, or more difficult, I think, for female artists than male artists, and it shouldn't be. But you know, when you just look at the charts, there's a lot more male artists out there than female.
Mm-hmm.
So from everything that you've gone through moving here, like I said earlier, we have a lot of people that listen to this that are aspiring to move to Nashville and get into this, whether it be an artist, a songwriter, just to work in the music industry behind the scenes, or whatever it is. What kind of advice would you give females specifically who want to do this?
I would say just keep in mind that the pendulum, I think, swings. You know, females dominated the charts in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I think I think that there is a space for everyone. And artists, you know, like Miranda, like Lainey, she's coming in, and she's obviously exploded, and I think has opened the doors for a lot of women to come through. And you know, a songwriter named Wyatt Durrett told me, you better make sure that you love it, because it's not going to love you back. And I was kind of like, ouch, when he told me that. And I think what that really means is just, it's a really tough road. Yeah. So I don't want to sugarcoat that and be like, hey, everything's going to be awesome. I mean, I just took you on the highlight reel of my 8-year journey since I've lived here. And there's a lot of tough days, but you just have to believe in what you do, and you have to just, you know, keep growing and keep going. For every no that you get told, there's so many no's, but all it takes is one yes. And so just believe in what you do, find out, you know, what your strengths are as a writer, as an artist, and lean into those, and know that it's probably going to be a rocky road, but it's going to be worth it too.
Yeah. So good.
So awesome.
What about advice for you? If you could go back to 8-year-old Jenna.
Oh boy. That's such a good question. I guess more of the same stuff. I think, I mean, it sounds somewhat cliche, but the hard days are where it all matters. Like, and that's everything from 8-year-old Jenna was waking up at 5 a.m. to go feed 40 horses in muck stalls in the heat, and just probably had a little attitude, if I'm guessing. And those days are so important. I mean, there's a lot of days in the music business that you're cleaning 40 stalls and in the heat, and it kind of sucks, but those are the days that count and that matter. You still have to show up, and that's kind of where the beauty comes from, and that those days allow you to have great days. And so I would just say, I guess, to little 8-year-old me, just keep trucking on and believe in yourself, and thank God for all the blessings, and thank your parents for making you do the hard things and teaching you all the lessons that they did. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Great advice.
Thanks.
I love it. Well, we are huge cheerleaders for you, and we'll you always have a place on this stage. So
thank you so much.
We appreciate you so much, and just can't wait to see this career just keep going.
Thank you. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. We'll have you back in a couple years and talk about all the awards that you've gotten and all this kind of stuff. Put it out there. It's going to happen.
One can only hope. But thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you guys out there listening. We appreciate it. It's because of you that we're able to do this. Thanks to our sponsors, All Clear In-Ears, Sennheiser Microphones, and Imperfect Esthetician. And yeah, just keep sharing this with all of your friends so we can keep doing it. You've been listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. I'm Chris Blair. This has been Jenna LaMaster, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Chris. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.